大家好，欢迎关注华尔街电视频道，节目录制时间为美东时间1月10日。这期热点深度关注陈吉宁，种种迹象显示，陈吉宁或已瞄准总理位，一条通向中南海的路已为他铺好。北京时间1月8日，上海市委书记陈吉宁会见了美国前财政部长劳伦斯·亨利·萨默斯一行。算一算，过去半年多时间，陈吉宁作为上海一把手，会见了不少外国商界、政界、学界人士，其中来自美国的各界人士是最多的。仅12月，就有迪士尼公司 CEO 罗伯特·艾格、微软公司总裁兼副主席施伯、布鲁金斯学会名誉主席、亚洲协会联席理事长约翰·桑顿。2023年10月，陈吉宁在上海会见了美国国会参议院多数党领袖查克·舒默一行。2023年9月，陈吉宁会见了委内瑞拉总统尼古拉斯·马杜罗。2023年8月，陈吉宁会见了美国商务部长雷蒙多。2023年6月，陈吉宁会见了特斯拉 CEO 马斯克。2023年4月，陈吉宁在上海会见了巴西总统卢拉。同月，陈吉宁还在上海会见了中国国民党前主席马英九。最重要的，2023年11月底，陈吉宁还迎来了习近平到上海考察调研。一位中国时政观察家向华尔街电视热点深度提到，陈吉宁这样一个在西方待了10多年，还有望成为中共接班人，这是之前根本不可想象的。陈吉宁英国留学，直到15年才以政治素人的面貌正式从政。他的晋升还曾被称反映出中共拓宽干部选拔的来源，从高校招揽从政人才。58岁的陈吉宁是吉林人，在清华大学土木与环境工程系和环境工程系取得学士、硕士学位后，赴英深造，获帝国理工学院土木系博士。1998年回清华执教，2006年出任副校长，2012年升为校长。2015年，他转任环境保护部部长，是当时最年轻的部长，任上大力治理雾霾。18大之后，25个部委的新一届掌门人平均年龄为60.8岁，其中最年轻的一位也比陈吉宁大7岁。陈吉宁2014年还是清华校长，22年就成为政治局委员、上海市委书记。2017年，陈吉宁担任首都市长，与市委书记蔡奇拍档，疏解非首都功能、大塞车、空气污染等大城市病得到明显改善，北京蓝天的日数大增。与此同时，今年初在疫情肆虐下，北京成功举办冬奥会，这里面几个跨越并不简单。2014年，陈吉宁从清华校长到环保部长，看起来副不到正部级别，但是从一个校长到一个部委，差别是不小的。另一个2017年，陈吉宁从环保部到北京市长，看起来是正部平调，但是这可是北京市长，重要程度超过不少省份的省委书记。在陈吉宁接任北京市长后，有观察人士曾认为，陈吉宁被委以北京市长重任，可能与他曾受到现任中共中组部常务副市长陈希的提拔有关。陈吉宁的伯乐是前中组部部长陈希。陈吉宁1986年毕业于清华大学土木与环境工程系，之后赴英国留学，1998年回清华大学任教，期间遇到任清华大学中共党委书记的陈希。陈吉宁在后者的提携下成为副校长，此后仕途一路上涨，2012年任清华大学校长，2015年任中共环保部部长。而陈希 中共官方公布的习近平和陈希二人的简历都注明的清清楚楚。习近平是1998至2002年在清华大学人文社会学院马克思主义理论与思想政治教育专业在职研究生班学习，获法学博士学位。而陈希则是在美国斯坦福大学做了2年访问学者后，于1993年开始担任清华大学党委副书记。习近平在职读博开始的那一年，陈希被晋升半格，成为清华大学党委常务副书记。习近平完成在职读博的2002年，陈希被晋升清华大学党委书记，官至副部长级。BBC 一篇政治局24人名单解读这么提到陈吉宁，称陈吉宁作为英国帝国理工环境分析博士，一直在学术领域，升任清华大学校长。在习近平时代，他开始转入环保部，此后逐步升任北京市长。从学者变政客，陈吉宁的政治嗅觉足够吗？这里有个例子，或许可以一窥陈吉宁的政治嗅觉。2022年11月11日，中国政府发布了防疫20条，被认为是放松了管控措施。此后，北京、广州、重庆等大城市确诊数激增。同月19日，习近平从泰国启程回国。20日，人民日报同一天发表署名重音的文章，重申坚持动态清零，喊出坚持动态清零方针不动摇、不走样的口号。新华社则发文强调不可松懈，谁也不能掉链子，要求进一步把思想和行动统一到以习近平为核心的中央决策部署上来等。或许陈吉宁就是所有地方官员中第一个领会了中央精神，并马上在上海做出调整的。据上海发布微信公众号2022年11月22日消息，来沪返沪人员抵沪不满5天者，不得进入餐饮服务，含酒吧、购物中心、含百货店、超市卖场、菜市场、美容美发、洗足浴、室内健身、歌舞娱乐、游艺厅、网吧、密室剧本杀、棋牌室等公共场所。意思就是可以坐地铁，可以去公园，但不能去餐馆饭店吃饭。不出1个月，12月7日新11条出来了，走向了全面共存的道路。但梳理上述时间表，能否得出陈吉宁政治嗅觉敏锐，相信不同的人也有不同的看法。综合陈吉宁的履历，有观察人士认为，陈吉宁是为21届总理或总书记培养的技术人才。目前，把陈吉宁放在上海，增加地方执政经验，并进一步观察。好了，以上就是今天热点深度所有内容。更多资讯可以关注6度简报网站，网址是6dobrief.com， 在上面各位可以订阅各类符合您喜好的简报新闻，有免费套餐，也有更加专业的付费套餐供大家选择。今天的视频就到这里，我们下个视频再见。大家好，欢迎关注华尔街电视频道，节目录制时间为美东时间1月9日。这期热点深度关注2024年中共的红二代们将掀起什么浪花。2024年1月3日，旅澳法学人士袁宏兵在台湾自由时报头版发布政治广告，透露中共红二代已经在刘源为核心集体联署要求习近平下台，并预测2024年习近平极大概率会在大危机中失势。这篇文章叫《中共严峻政治危机怎样影响台湾局势》，内容指出，刘少奇之子刘源为核心的红二代群体已经形成政治共识。该共识内容包括剥夺习近平主宰中国国运的权利等内容。习近平最近对中国大企业的整肃与吞并行动， 已经严重伤及中共红二代的利益，加上军方高层不断被查、撤换甚至消失，也引发军方体系的愤怒。习近平执政10年，彻底放弃和背叛邓小平开启的改革开放路线，全面倒退回文化大革命时期政治思想和经济路线，导致政治、经济、社会和外交的全面危机。这些危机已经达到动摇国本的严重程度。最严重的是，习近平正在推动国家进入战时体制，为发动台海战争做准备。如果不加以制止，势必使中国人民遭遇到所谓有战争风险。习近平摧毁民主集中制，实行个人独裁，10年以来，经济不可逆转的急剧恶化，民生艰难，国家财政濒临破产，民怨沸腾，关心动荡，社会全面危机一触即发。在国际外交领域，放弃邓小平韬光养晦以求发展的正确战略，盲目自大，四面出击，战狼外交，使中国在发达国家的体系内沦为千夫所指的国际公敌。鉴于以上不可回避的事实，为制止习近平把国家引向前所未有灾难的倒行逆施，我们将采取行动，向9000万共产党员发出呼吁，开展一场划时代的民主政治改革，剥夺习近平主宰中国国运的权利，用民主社会主义的理论改造我们的党，使中国共产党转化为社会民主党，引领中国走向民主社会主义的议会政治体制。同时，摒弃武力威胁台湾的国策，使两岸关系走上共存共荣的良性发展道路，并以此为契机，全面改善与美国、日本、欧盟、英国、澳大利亚等经济、文化发达国家的关系，重新赢得中国经济发展的战略机遇期。袁宏斌还分析，这批中共红二代的中坚力量，他们的父兄一辈在文化大革命中遭受到毛泽东残酷的政治整肃，包括刘少奇、贺龙元帅在内的一大批中共元老甚至被迫害致死。这一次，以刘源为核心的红二代之所以敢在国际社会公开通报他们推进中国共产党社会民主党化的政治改革，也是基于一个基本判断：如果习近平效法毛泽东对这批红二代再次实施政治大迫害，那么是将点燃中共党内对习近平的怒火。中国时政观察家大多也都留意到，在2023年11月，刘源撰文反对个人专断。11月1日，毛泽东思想研究网站和杂志刊登了署名作者为刘源、魏灵的纪念刘少奇名旦的文章，确立和坚持民主集中制，加强组织与制度建设。毛思想研究杂志创办于1983年，倡导者是原中共四川省委书记杨超，主办单位是四川省社会科学院和四川省社会科学界联合会，属于国家级期刊。按照其网上说法，在国内外都有着广泛的影响。该杂志被认为是背后有一大批中共退休和现任高官支持，而刘源的文章能在杂志上发表，透露的就是编辑部和其背后高官们对其的认可。稍后几天，11月6日晚，纪念音乐会在北京音乐厅举行。出席音乐会除了刘源外，还有刘少奇的女儿刘婷、毛泽东的外孙王孝之、周恩来的侄女周秉德、朱德的孙子朱和平少将和外孙刘建少将、陈毅之子陈浩苏、华国锋之子苏斌、张云逸大将之子张光东少将、东部战区原陆军司令员秦卫江中将等。1月9日，自由亚洲梁京评论讨论了上述中共红二代最近集体向习近平发难的新闻， 认为大字报字里行间大有舍得一身剐，敢把皇帝拉下马的味道。然而，评论认为上述条消息多大程度属实，难以评估，但评论相信尚存一点政治头脑和能量的中共红二代，此时心情一定极不平静，因为他们比别人都更清楚，习近平不仅把所有事情都搞砸了，而且他完全没有能力收拾这个烂摊子，反而可能在彻底毁掉自己和国家之际，把轻起的矛头指向整个红二代。也就是说，红二代明白，习近平正在给整个国家带来一场巨大灾难，如不被阻止，对红二代也将意味着一场灭顶之灾。问题是，红二代有可能阻止习近平吗？评论是相信连红二代自己也不知道。尽管如此，红二代知道已经不能再等别人出手。评论的理由是：第一，有关团派和中共退休大佬劝阻习近平无果的报道并非虚构，而红二代对此也完全知情。第二，习近平是以红二代的名分接掌大权的，且红二代的主要人物不同程度都支持过他。也就是说，红二代曾相信习近平是自己人，或者习近平会把他们当自己人。但习近平一再用行动表明，为了多做一天皇帝，他可以与任何人为敌。那么，红二代就不怕习近平像处置任志强那样对待他们吗？评论认为，红二代一方面知道自己有风险，但也看到了形势对习近平极为不利。更重要的是，整个大局失控的风险正在急剧上升。此时不出手一搏，即使习近平很快垮台，红二代自身面临的集体风险也难以估量。相反，如果红二代出手，会大大增加倒习成功的机会，特别是增加说服习近平体面下台的可能，从而增加红二代在后习近平时代的社会上有一席之地的机会。总之，这是一个倾巢之下岂有完卵的逻辑。这个逻辑的合理部分就是红二代不反戈一击到齐，于己于国都不利。但红二代若到习成功，就真的意味着他们能救国救己了吗？评论相信很少人，包括红二代自己，会这样想，因为大家都知道，今日中国的危机之深重，已经不可能避免发生一场21世纪的中国大革命。那么，红二代若到习成功，对红二代的命运以及21世纪的中国大革命意味着什么呢？评论的看法是，红二代若到习成功，尤其是红二代若能说服习近平体面退位，能为即将到来的21世纪中国大革命开一个好头。这个道理可从台湾民主化的历史逻辑得到支持。蒋经国为首的蓝二代当然知道开放党禁必然会带来国民党失去政权的可能，但新的油气给了蓝二代及他们的后代平等参与民主政治的机会。有人可能会认为，给蓝二代或者给红二代及他们的后代平等参与未来民主政治游戏的机会，未必是一件好事。毕竟，他们的父辈做了那么多伤天害理的坏事，欠了那么多的血债。评论的看法是，21世纪的中国大革命若想不重复20世纪中国大革命的悲剧和惨剧，需要一个理性的中国现代化叙事，尤其是一个理性的现代国家建构叙事。这个新的历史和国家叙事，没有所有幸存者的后代平等参与，是不可能以理性的方式完成的。21世纪的中国大革命之所以不可避免，与20世纪的中国大革命建国目标和政治路线之错误当然有直接关系。但红二代、蓝二代以及他们的对手，迄今都没有讲清楚背后的道理。 而以上也只是梁晶评论的红二代的命运与21世纪的中国大革命内容的一部分而已。好了，以上就是今天热点深度所有内容，更多资讯可以关注六度简报网站，网址是6dobrief.com， 在上面各位可以订阅各类符合您喜好的简报新闻，有免费套餐，也有更加专业的付费套餐供大家选择。今天的视频就到这里，我们下个视频再见。
By thanking the Council on Foreign Relations for the kind invitation, and Dr. Michael Froman for your kind words. The CFR is renowned for its global reach and also a unique role in shaping American foreign policy. The Foreign Affairs magazine has been my must-read since I joined the Foreign Service at a very young age. The CFR has also contributed tremendously to the development of China-US relations over the years. And also I'd like to take this opportunity to express China's deepest appreciation for your sponsorship of the welcoming dinner for President Xi Jinping in San Francisco. So it is truly my honor and delight that Dr. Michael Froman, other CFI colleagues, and the great audience here, both in this room and online, for joining the conversation. So now I'd like to share with you what China is doing at home and abroad. I'll start with China's domestic policy. For now and a long time to come, the major and central task at home is to advance the modernization drive. The Central Economic Work Conference, concluded 4 weeks ago, reviewed China's economic work of 2023 and planned for 2024, further clarifying what kind of development China pursues and how to achieve it. China pursues high-quality development. Despite the achievements, China's development remains imbalanced and insufficient. The extensive growth model used to be followed that mainly pursued high speed resulted in many problems. We therefore had to adjust the growth model, putting more emphasis on quality rather than speed. High quality development must be driven by innovation and technological progress. So that reminds me of January 1979, when Comrade Deng Xiaoping and President Carter signed at the White House the agreement between the United States and China on cooperation in science and technology, providing institutional guarantee for the scientific and technological exchanges between the two countries. And ever since then, achievements have been made in the joint research between the two countries on science and technology. China stands ready to work together with the United States to truly implement the San Francisco vision and bring China-US scientific and technological exchanges back to the right track. And we're often asked the question, will China ignore development as it talks more about security? Indeed, China has highlighted the importance of security just as other countries do. We believe high quality of development can only be achieved in a highly secure environment. But what we pursue is a balanced and positive interplay between security and development, and we'll never ignore development, and it holds the key to solving all the problems and challenges in China. China pursues high standard opening up. Last year marks the 45th anniversary of China's reform and opening up policy. This policy has transformed China tremendously. I was born in the 1960s, and I witnessed the sheer contrast of life before and after the policy was adopted. China will remain committed to the policy and keep its door open. Going forward, China will continue to expand institutional opening up with regard to rules, regulations, and management to create a market-oriented, law-based business environment that meets the international standard. In the process, we'll try to address the concerns of the American businesses, such as market access to the service sector, cross-border flow of data, and equal participation in government procurement. In the same vein, we hope that the United States keeps its market open and provides the Chinese companies with equitable, just, and non-discriminatory business environment as well. So another question is, will China become more inward-looking as it talks more about self-reliance? China has accelerated efforts to foster a new development pattern that is focused on the domestic economy and features positive interplay between domestic and international economic flows. But let me be very clear. For domestic circulation to function well, it does need stronger international cooperation, more foreign trade, and better use of FDI. We benefited from these in the past, and China's first joint venture automobile company, Beijing Jeep, was in partnership with the United States, and the first wholly foreign-owned company, W.R. Grace & Co., was also from the United States. We understand that our success comes from not only our own hard work, but also the cooperation with the world, and we are determined to strengthen such cooperation. China pursues steady economic performance. In recent years, we have endeavored to keep our economy stable while taking incremental steps to sustain progress. We focus on creating a stable macro environment, securing people's livelihood, and avoiding big fluctuations in growth, employment, and inflation. In the same time, we have strived to make progress in high-quality development by transforming the growth model, optimizing the economic structure, and shifting the driving force, which in turn sustains the good momentum of steady growth for the long run. Another question would be, compared with the pre-COVID era, China's economy is slowing down. I think that we need to put this issue in perspective and bear in mind two factors. Number one, China's economic aggregate. For China, the growth rate of 7.7 in 2013 means a $660 billion increase of economic aggregate, while 5% of growth in 2023 means a $900 billion increase of economic aggregate. That is to say, 1 percentage point of growth now roughly equals 2.1 percentage points of growth 10 years ago. Number two, the quality of China's economy. Thanks to innovation, which has already become the primary driver of China's economic growth, the quality of our economy keeps improving. On top of that, the vast market demand, stable macro policies, and ample room for monetary and fiscal policies, China's economy has sound fundamentals and good potential. And China pursues green development. We have made unprecedented efforts to advance green, low-carbon, and circular development. At present, nearly half of the world's installed photovoltaic capacity is in China. Over 50% of all new energy vehicles in the world are now running in China, and 1/4 of the world's total increased afforestation is contributed by China. Some people argue that as the largest emitter of greenhouse gases, China should bear more responsibility in addressing climate change. Climate change is caused by both current and historical emissions. As developed countries contribute to over 70% of the global total accumulated emissions, they should shoulder greater responsibility. Yet, China is trying hard to make the sharpest reduction in carbon intensity in the world and achieve carbon peaking and carbon neutrality in the shortest time span in world history. Colleagues, China's strategic goal is grand and yet simple. That is to deliver a better life for more than 1.4 billion Chinese people. To achieve it, we are working hard to advance China's modernization, and President Xi Jinping recently stressed during the Central Conference on work relating to foreign policy that China's foreign policy in the new era should aim at creating a more favorable international environment for China's modernization drive and building a human community with a shared future. China remains firm in pursuing an independent foreign policy of peace and is committed to peaceful development. China is the only country to incorporate its commitment of peaceful development into China's constitution. And recently we have adopted the law on foreign relations, which explicitly stresses again China's commitment to peace and the path of peaceful development. Since the founding of the People's Republic of China, we have all along kept a good record on peace. We have never provoked a conflict or war, or occupied a single inch of foreign land. President Xi Jinping reiterated during his recent visit to the United States that China will not fight a cold war or a hot war with anyone. People in Asia have our own way of dealing with each other, which values peace and, above everything else, and seeks peaceful solutions to all disputes. China does not seek to change the current international order, still less reinvent the wheel by creating a new international order. We are one of the builders of the current world order and have benefited from it. We'll continue to uphold the international system with the UN at its core and the international order underpinned by international law and the basic norms governing international relations. A human community with a shared future is about an open, inclusive, clean, and beautiful world that enjoys lasting peace, universal security, and common prosperity. To build it, we have proposed the Global Development Initiative, the Global Security Initiative, and the Global Civilization Initiative as the strategic guidance, and the Belt and Road Initiative as a practicing platform. Colleagues, this year marks the 45th anniversary of diplomatic relations between China and the United States. Looking back, we see that this relationship has brought tremendous benefits to our two peoples and other peoples in the world. During the summit meeting in San Francisco, President Xi Jinping put forward 5 pillars for China-US relations and a future-oriented San Francisco vision. What is needed now is not waiting or debating, but to act upon it. We should strengthen dialogue and communication. My visit this time is to have candid exchanges with people from across the American society on how to implement the San Francisco vision. We're here to promote dialogues between the governments, legislatures, and political parties of the two countries, as we believe communication is the only way of increasing common understanding. President Xi Jinping has announced that China is ready to invite 50,000 young Americans to visit China on exchange and study programs in the next 5 years. As we speak, the government agencies in China, universities, and civil society organizations are gearing up to send out invitations, and my department is also ready to join them to invite young American political leaders to visit China and get some first-hand experiences. China and the United States should properly manage differences. Having engaged with each other for such a long time, both China and the United States know too well each other's core interests and red lines that can never be crossed. For China, the Taiwan question is at the very core of the core interests. It's the red line that must be crossed. And we take serious the statements of the United States not supporting Taiwan independence, and we hope that the US side will honor this commitment. We should expand mutually beneficial cooperation. Mutually beneficial cooperation brings benefits to our two peoples and adds certainty to our relationship. This is what we have learned from the past 45 years of interactions, and something we must continue in the future. Our two countries can cooperate on a wide range of areas from trade, agriculture, to law enforcement and artificial intelligence. Take our cooperation in fentanyl as an example. To support the US endeavor to combat fentanyl abuse at home, China has scheduled all the fentanyl analogs as controlled substances since 2019, the first country to do so in the world. And during the summit meeting, the two sides agreed to put in place a working group on counter-narcotics for greater cooperation on more fronts, and we are looking very much forward to concrete and visible deliverables. China and the United States should work together to address common challenges. The success of COP28 has once again proven that China and the United States can accomplish big and good things when working together. As the world has entered a period of turbulence and transformation, people of all countries are counting on China and the United States to take the lead in resolving more global issues and offering more public goods. China stands ready to work with the United States to show their responsibilities and make new contributions to human progress. So I thank you very much for your attention, and I will be very much looking forward to take your questions. Thank you.
That was great.
Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you very much for laying that out for us. You mentioned the recent work conference, the Foreign Affairs Work Conference, where I understand one of the issues discussed was how to make sure there's a correct understanding of China as a trustworthy, lovable, and respectable country. Now, at the same time, President Xi was calling diplomatic relations a struggle. He asked his diplomats to engage in a fighting spirit, and he called for a diplomatic iron army. Are we likely to see a return to wolf warrior diplomacy, and how is that lovable?
I don't really believe that there has always been a kind of wolf warrior diplomacy, and there's no talk about coming back to that diplomacy. But when you talk about the kind of iron diplomatic army, he really means that the diplomats, Chinese diplomats, both at home and around the world, should stay disciplined and well, disciplined, and in terms of making sure that they have very strong moral integration and work hard. So it's not really something about a kind of wolf warrior, quote unquote. So I think that the fundamental goal of China's diplomats would be to contribute their efforts in making sure that China's relations with other countries be warm and cooperative, and then by that we mean that we try to create a favorable international environment for China's modernization drive.
Let's talk about one of those relationships, the relationship between China and Russia. When President Xi met President Putin, he allegedly said, right now there are changes, the like of which we haven't seen for 100 years, and we are the ones driving these changes together. Mm-hmm. What did he mean by that? What are those changes? And what does you mentioned in your remarks, you don't seek to create a new world order, but how do you see Russia and China working together to modify the existing world order?
I think that really it's not really limited only to China and Russia. I think that one of the features of the global transformation would be the collective emergence of the developing powers. I mean, a collective rise of the emerging economies, including China, Russia, India, Brazil. So I think that basically, when we're talking about the transformation, we mean the rise collectively of the emerging economies. So certainly China and Russia are part of the transformation powers. So I think that the China-Russia relations is strong, and we really enjoy good neighborly relationship and also very strong strategic partnership. So I think that such a relationship between China and Russia benefit not only Chinese and the Russians, because we do need each other, and we also work together to ensure that the international balance of power, and that will ensure the peace and stability on the Eurasian continent and also the world at large. So I think that the relationship is useful for the two countries and also useful for the region and the world.
You mentioned in your remarks and now the importance China places on peace and being a defender of peace. China's also been very outspoken about the inviolability of sovereignty. How do you reconcile that with China's support for Russia's attack on Ukraine?
I don't believe that, when you say that China supports the military operation on Ukraine, because we do believe that the sovereignty and territorial integrity of a country must be respected. And in the context of the Ukraine crisis, I think there's more to that. And the security concern of a country, in particular in this regard, in this context, Russia, must also be very well addressed. So I think in terms of sustained peace and stability in the world, I think that there should be a balance of addressing of all the concerns of all the countries in the world. So I think that the Ukraine crisis is more complex than it appears to be. So we believe that all the parties that are involved in the conflict and crisis should try to find out in a faithful manner then how to bring an end to the crisis as soon as possible, because the world has already suffered from the spillover effects of the Ukraine crisis. So I hope that the United States, the NATO members, European partners should work to find out what should be the right way to move about the Ukraine crisis.
But does that mean that you feel Russia should withdraw from Ukrainian territory?
Sorry?
Does that mean that China urges Russia to withdraw from Ukrainian territory?
I think that we do want to see another end. And I do believe that when we talk to the Russians, they are showing enthusiasm of having peace talks with Ukraine, so we support that.
Let's talk about another region. You've got close relationships with Iran. China's been playing more of a role in the Middle East, helping to broker an agreement between Iran and Saudi Arabia. We now have Iranian-supported Houthi forces interrupting the flow of ships in the Red Sea. No country is more dependent on the free flow of products from one sea to another than China. Are you concerned about this, and are you urging Iran to urge the Houthis to stop interrupting this important trade route?
We do stand very strongly for peaceful, navigation of cargo ships in that part of the world because it's essential for the world's economy. But I'm not commenting on your indication that Iran is supporting the Houthis in this particular operation. I was visiting Iran about 3 or 4 weeks ago, where we were talking about the Palestinian and Israeli conflict. And I believe that the Iranians were moving about this conflict in a very prudent way. They were telling me that they were not involved in any kind of support of the Hamas in the fight, in the attack on Israel. And they did not really know beforehand that the attack was going to happen. So they did not really give any military support or even military advice to the Hamas. So I think that they are being very, very prudent in this regard.
So you don't believe that Iran is, whether they knew about this particular attack, Iran supporting Hamas and training them, equipping them, supporting Hezbollah, directing them, and supporting Houthis. You don't see Iran playing a significant role there?
I think it's a very influential country in that region. But, we don't really have the specific information and intelligence about what is going on. But, the Middle East issue is more complicated than just a Palestinian-Israeli conflict. I mean, there are religious factors, racial factors, and ethnic factors, religious factors as well. So I think that that's why we're talking about a comprehensive security concept when all these concerns and factors should be addressed, because you can't really say that we can, fix only this one factor while leaving behind all the other factors. So I think that even with the conflict between the Israelis and Palestinians, I think that the world should take a more effective action in stopping the conflict there, and also that the human will not suffer more the loss of lives and also suffering.
Let's talk about U.S.-China relations, particularly, as you said, it's the 45th anniversary of our normalized relations. We are in an important year, including an election year here in the United States. Minister Wang Yi has said cooperation is no longer an option, but an imperative. What specific areas of cooperation do you think the U.S. and China can work together on? And what would you expect to see as deliverables over the course of 2024? I
don't really see any area that China cannot really cooperate with the United States. But if the two countries really have reasonable and correct perceptions of each other, good policies will be possible. So there's a tremendous potential for the largest developed country in the world and the largest developing country in the world. So tremendous potentials as could be seen in our cooperation in the past. So I think the possibility and potentiality are all there. But now I think that it's really up for the the United States develop a kind of perception on China based on good understanding and correct understanding of China's strategic intentions. China does grow, and it has the right to grow in strength, and so China will naturally become more powerful in terms of its economy, its military, and many other areas as well. But China's intention is basically to deliver a better life for the Chinese people. So we don't really have any hidden agenda. Overtaking the United States is not our goal. So if we have that in mind, the kind of mutually beneficial cooperation would be possible. And I think I don't really want to name the areas we can talk about: trade, economy, agriculture, law enforcement, even on cooperation in addressing global challenges. And people around the world do have strong expectations on the two countries to work together and other parties in the world to address the global challenges, which is a must for China and the United States.
As you said, China's commitment is really to deliver for its people. The economy has slowed down. It's facing a number of challenges. One of the messages that President Xi and the Chinese leadership have been trying to convey over the last year is that China's open for business. They welcome foreign investment to come back. At the same time, there's been a number of actions around the implementation of some of China's new laws, the anti-espionage law, the data security, or the data laws around national security, that have had a chilling effect on foreign investors. Executives being detained, offices being raided. It's been a bit of a schizophrenic message that's been sent. Can China do anything to clarify how it intends to implement and enforce these laws in order to give some clarity and greater certainty to foreign investors?
Well, I think that in the first place that there should not be such unnecessary rhetoric that such things do take place, because anti-espionage law and other laws are necessary for China. And in the United States, you have even stricter anti-espionage laws, and that's why the United States is using these laws to create barriers for foreign investment, including China's. Anti-espionage law is certainly something that is being played up unnecessarily. And I have never heard of story that, any foreign business office has been raided on a groundless basis, and about the law regulating the data flow is necessary for China. But we are ready to do explanation and also to do a job that will convince foreign business people that China is the country that you can have good opportunities for development.
Let's switch to Taiwan, and I'm going to do one more brief question, then open it up to the audience. So please be ready with your questions. In 1975, Chairman Mao evidently told Secretary of State Kissinger.
In 1979?
75.
Okay, good.
75. Sorry. Yes. That, quote, "If you were to send Taiwan back to me now, I would not want it because it is not desirable. There are a large number of counter-revolutionaries there. 100 years hence, we will want it." Now, we're a half a century away from 2075. What would Mao say about the Taiwan question in 2024?
The unification of China and also has always been the dream of the Chinese people on both sides of the Taiwan Strait. So I think that this is the firm and clear and strong policy of the Chinese government and the strong aspiration of the Chinese people. So apart from that, I think there's no need to explain our position on the Taiwan issue.
All right. At his dinner in San Francisco, President Xi said, "We're ready to continue our cooperation with the United States on panda conservation." When are the pandas coming back?
I hope that they're coming back as soon as possible.
And will they come back to the National Zoo in Washington, D.C.?
it depends on you where you're going to put it.
There's a David Rubenstein Panda House at the Washington.
I hope that'll be here in the Council on Foreign Relations.
Excellent. We'd be happy to. I'd be happy to give up my office for the panda.
Let me correct you. If you give you a panda instead of a giant panda, you'll be disappointed. Because there are two kinds of pandas. One is panda and giant panda. We're talking about giant pandas. The black and white one.
The black and white ones. Thank you. All right. We'll look for the giant pandas. Thank you for the clarification. Let me open it up to questions. Yes, please.
I don't know if you need a mic.
Yeah, here's a mic coming to you. Please identify yourself.
Thank you. I'm James Heimanwitz from China Institute. First, a big thank you. My first introduction to China was through Zhonglianbu as a small student studying to go over there as a young boy. And I'm delighted to hear you'll be supporting the 50,000 students that was proposed, we heard from President Xi. My question to you is actually about Western media. We talked about misunderstanding and misperceptions that the U.S. has about China. And I think that the U.S. audience relies heavily on reporting from Western media. There's a bad history, I think, would say, between Western media and China. And it's filled with mistrust and misunderstanding. I'm wondering if you agree that Western media is important to the way that the U.S. sees China, and if yes, what can China do to help improve that reporting and coverage?
Thank you. Very important indeed, because I used to be the Director General of the Information Department of the Foreign Ministry, so I was basically working with the foreign press, including the Western press. Very important indeed, and at that time I think the total number of foreign journalists in China amounted to about 800. So there's quite a lot, basically in Beijing and some other correspondents in Shanghai and other places. I think that they played an extremely important role in serving as a bridge between the Chinese people and people all over the world. So people do read foreign affairs, people do read other journals and magazines and newspapers, and well, I think also read online. Very important. China has always been taking a very positive and supportive position on encouraging more foreign journalists to come to China and report and to see China for themselves and report China in a very accurate and objective way. But it's true that we do have differences. Even when journalists come to China, they do see China in a way that is different from our expectations, because we believe that China is like this, but they are portraying China in a different way. And that sometimes creates some difficulties, but that's not the mainstream of things. So China is open not only to the business people, but also to Western and global and international media. But there were some rows between China and the United States in some years before. And the Chinese media was here in the United States, media organizations were labeled as foreign agents or foreign missions. And that was wrong. So there was a kind of row between them. There was a kind of difficult time between the Chinese government and the US government in working together on media. But I hope that could be mended. And also governing foreign journalists reporting in China, there's also laws and regulations. For example, personally I was involved in shaping the law in 2008, right after the Olympic Games. And there was a lot of changes from the previous regulations, and which really paved the way for more accessible information in China. But I hope that in this regard, China and the Western media could really work in a more strong cooperative way to make sure that our peoples will understand each other better through the media. So we take a very proactive approach towards that. Thank you.
Dan Rosen.
Thank you very much. Dan Rosen, Rhodium Group. Coming back to your discussion of the performance of the Chinese economy, as you noted, China has now become a globally, systemically important economy. And if the estimate of China's growth is very high, that leads to big investments to feed China's needs in places like Africa. Is there concern and discussion in Beijing that an overestimate of China's macroeconomic growth could aggravate challenges in Belt and Road countries? We're talking about Zambia a lot today, for example. If you can speak to this a little bit, the spillover effects of the quality of Chinese statistics at home on other more fragile developing countries? Thank you.
China actually has been working with the African countries for a long time, even during the difficult time of China's economy, like in the 1970s. China was really offering a very useful helping hand to the African people and countries in building, at that time, even you talk about Zambia, and certainly you know about the Tanzania-Zambia railway. So that was when China, even during the time when it was poor itself, we were trying to offer a helping hand. And then when after the China's policy of reform and opening up, we are even working more closely together with African countries. So when you talk about Chinese economy now is doing well, and we are stronger than we used to be. We were much stronger than we were 10 years ago. So that 10 years ago was the time when China's Belt and Road Initiative was proposed. So we were now today, we are in a very stronger and better position to work with countries that are involved in the Belt and Road Initiative, in building the connectivity, infrastructure, trade and things. So I think that we are not really exerting any burden on the countries that are involved in the Belt and Initiative, and actually China's assistance and China's cooperation with these countries are really warm welcome by these countries. So take, for example, the country where I used to work as ambassador. You know that in Indonesia, now we are seeing the launch of the Jakarta-Bandung bullet train. When I was there, it took me 5 hours at midnight to travel from Jakarta to Bandung. Now it took only 40 minutes. So the train was running at 350 kilometers an hour. Yes, a tremendous amount of money was spent on that bullet train and on the railway. But as the president put it, the Indonesian president put it, you should not only look at the cost of the railway, but we have to look at the benefits, financial benefits, economic benefits, social benefits. So when they have the train in place, it means more than just building the railway itself, because when the railway is not there, what people have in mind is that how much money that we're going to spend. But when they have the railway, they're thinking about how much money we're going to make with that railway. So that's the fundamental change of people's approach towards this kind of connectivity building and infrastructure building. So I think a lot of people are talking about the debt problem of the African countries, and China is not the major contributor to the debt problem in that continent. Thank you.
Yes, right here in front.
Of Advection Growth Capital. Thank you for coming today, Ambassador. Israel was the first state in the Middle East to recognize the People's Republic of China in 1950. And over the more recent years, you have developed very strong economic relations with Israel. In fact, are its second largest trading partner. And I think also manage part of the port of Haifa right now. Yet, on October the 7th, China has not yet condemned the terrorist attack on Israel. And despite the fact that you yourselves have been victims of Islamic terrorism in the past. Could you explain why that is? I understand that you have relations with the Arab countries, with Iran, etc. But you could still maintain those relations while still condemning that attack. And would you do so today?
Let me correct you. Let me say that we appreciate the fact that Israel was one of the first countries that recognized China. And for many, many years, China and Israel have really very good and cooperative and warm relations with each other. And also our peoples share a lot of good emotions towards each other. So that's the fundamentals of China's relationship. And when it comes to the general picture of Middle East crisis and Middle East issue, China does stand on the side of the Arab countries. I don't need to explain more on that. But what I want to correct you is that on the very first day of the October the 7th attack, China did condemn the attack on the civilians. So if you track the record, you'll find that. But now, the overuse of force and the obvious revengeful retaliation by the Israelis on Palestinians is something that is also unacceptable to us. And that results in tremendous humanitarian sufferings and crisis. So we do hope that the crisis, the conflict could come to an end, and the Israelis should stop, behave in such a manner, and so there could be a restoration of order. And China does see eye to eye with many countries in the world that the two-country plan must be adopted. So when you talk about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, I do believe that the UN resolutions must be adopted, and that people are condemning Hamas, which is correct in a way that they target on the civilians and attack them. But on the other side, the Israelis should also think about their behavior in building fences, in the settling on the Palestinian land, on driving the Palestinian people out. So the Palestinian people, they should have the right to come back to their homeland, to restore their sovereignty, and also to establish their own country. So I think that a lot remains to be done, and there needs to be international consensus and also concerted efforts in achieving this. Thank you.
We're going to go to our virtual audience for a question.
We'll take our next question from Trudy Rubin. Please accept the unmute now button.
Hi. Thank you for doing this. I'm Trudy Rubin. I'm an international affairs columnist for the Philadelphia Inquirer. Sir, the Taiwan elections coming up this week, everyone is very focused on how China will react to the results. If the DPP candidate, Vice President Lei, should win, China has denounced him as a separatist, but he says he would maintain the status quo and engage with China. What would be China's reaction if the DPP should win this election?
Oh, thank you very much for the question. But at this juncture, what I want to say is that China's position on the Taiwan issue remains clear, strong, and unchanged. So that's what I'm going to tell you at this moment. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, the woman on the aisle.
Morning. I'm Katie Kingsbury from the New York Times. First, I wanted to affirm that on behalf of my industry colleagues, we would welcome the opportunity to report more from China in the future. But my question is actually about China's nuclear arsenal. Could you comment on what efforts China is undertaking to build its current arsenal and what potential for cooperation between China, the United States, and Russia there is in terms of new rules around use and testing of those weapons?
Thank you. China does attach great importance to the nuclear security in the world, and China made it very clear that China will not, on the very first day that China developed the nuclear bomb, we say that China will not be the first one to use the nuclear bomb, and China will not use the nuclear bomb against any country, the non-nuclear country. And, we have the common consensus on the nuclear war can never be won and must be never be fought. And we are concerned about such a big arsenal of nuclear weapons in the world. But when it comes to the negotiations and dialogues, I think that the United States and Russia, which possess the largest nuclear arsenal in the world, should take the lead in having negotiations between themselves. Thank you.
Ian Johnson.
Hello.
Senior
Ian Johnson
fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations.
We knew each other when
we knew each other from the 1990s, I think. I have a question about Hong Kong. This is something that a lot of foreign business people are interested in, especially since 2019 and the protests then and the adoption the next year of the national security law. Hong Kong's status as an international financial center has somewhat declined. You can see this in the number of people, Hong Kong business people and foreign businesses who have moved their operations, say, to Singapore, etc. And I wondered if it wouldn't make more sense now for China to show a little leniency toward people who are involved in the protests. I'm thinking especially of the entrepreneur Jimmy Lai, and also the announcement in December of that China put a bounty on 5 protesters who now live overseas. And simply from a pragmatic point of view, trying to restore confidence in Hong Kong as a financial center, wouldn't it make sense to sort of try to turn the page on that rather than keeping it in the international eye like that?
Thank you. Thank you for the question. I think that a number of aspects about this question. Number one is that Hong Kong, despite the bad time of a period of anarchy and disorder and violence, Hong Kong remains a financial center, number one. Number two, when you're talking about pragmatic terms, Hong Kong should be a place that is also ruled by law and is governed by law. So if there's any company that is moving out to other places, it's not because of the return to order, to normal in Hong Kong. If you suppose the incident or the situation of 2019 continues, would the foreign companies be staying or leaving Hong Kong? So I think this is the logic is very simple. So we don't want to have the kind of situation where anarchy and disorder prevail in that part of the world, because it's disastrous for Hong Kong. So we managed to put order in Hong Kong, and I think that is welcome by the foreign business people as well, because their lives in Hong Kong is safe, their business in Hong Kong is safe, and Hong Kong will continue to be governed on the basis of the basic law, on the formula of one country, 2 systems. So that remain unchanged. But if anybody trying to sabotage the order and the situation in Hong Kong, they will not be tolerated, and that should be, dealt with in accordance with the law. Thank you.
Yes, about 2/3 of the way back, behind you, I'm afraid. That gentleman, and then we'll come back.
Jeff Laurenti, Capital City Development Corporation. It is nice that in response to Trudy Rubin's question, you had indicated that the policy of Beijing toward Taiwan is unchanging and unchangeable. Although you have opened some civil relationships with the Kuomintang that the Communist Party had expelled from the mainland 75 years ago, but it does raise the question, if one is seeking to bring the two sides together, what space the Communist Party in China is prepared to give to the Kuomintang or any other Chinese national party to operate on the mainland side. And if you could give some sense of where your relations with the Kuomintang or other political parties in Taiwan might be. And forgive me for asking about one fascinating item of your biography, an impressive biography, both at Zhejiang and at the Central Commission level for discipline inspection. Discipline inspection, is that like what federal prosecutors do to our politicians in New Jersey? Or is that enforcing ideological uniformity in some way?
Well, I prefer to take your second question. China's position on the unification of China is, as I said, is very clear. So long as the One China consensus is observed, there could be communications and talks between mainland and relevant factions in Taiwan. And we stand for peaceful development of the cross-strait relations, and we do hope to see communications between the two sides on the basis of the One China policy and principle. Yes, I started my career as a diplomat in 1986, and that led me up until I was ambassador to the Philippines and Indonesia, and then assistant foreign minister. Then there was a very strong campaign in the Communist Party of China on strengthening the building of the party. And one aspect of this campaign would be to fight with a stronger hand against corruption, because at that time, corruption was really bad and rampant in China, and that was dangerous for the party and for China, the country, and people hated that. And there was a phenomenon, or that, some government officials, civil servants, members of the Communist Party, when they committed corruption and become criminal suspects, they try to flee to escape the punishment. So they ended up with fleeing China to other parts of the world. And certainly the United States was one of their destinations. So I think that they decided to have somebody who is more experienced in international cooperation. And for this job is international cooperation in law enforcement. So then they chose me. I don't know why, but that happened. So the CCDI, Central Commission of Discipline Inspection, there are two elected committees within the Communist Party of China. One is the Central Committee of the Communist Party, which is headed by Xi Jinping as the General Secretary. And there's another elected committee, which is the Central Committee of Discipline Inspection. And the CCDI, Discipline Inspection Committee, is under the leadership of the Central Party Committee. So the two committees. So basically, you could tell from the name, it's more about discipline. It's more about fighting corruption. It's more about punishing people who have violated the charter of the Communist Party of China, and also the people who violated Chinese laws. So with regard to the corruption, they violate not only the charter of the Communist Party, the disciplinary rules, they also violated the law. So then, when they flee the country, in the past there was nothing could be done about them. But then we decided to take them back with the support and help from our partners, our colleagues from other countries. Here in the United States, we did got help from the Department of Justice and your Land Security Department.
Homeland Security.
Yeah, Homeland Security Department. So we managed to get them back on the basis of the U.S. law and on the basis of Chinese law. We did have really very useful cooperation with each other in taking back to China some of the criminal suspects. And that was really in accordance, in line, in conformity with the international consensus on leaving no safe haven for corrupt people. So I think that is very good when we got help. And we do express our strong appreciation for the law enforcement departments here in the United States for helping China in this regard. But later on, I was sent to Zhejiang province, and at the provincial level, the same as the central level, there's also two committees, the provincial committee and the party discipline inspection committee also. So the same thing, but at a lower level. But I was chief of that commission in Zhejiang. And that gave me a lot of experiences. And I do believe that job really brings justice to the people. Thank you.
We have a lot more questions, but unfortunately we have no more time. Let me say, I think China is very fortunate, Mr. Minister, to have you in this position where you can explain and defend its policies. I go as far as to say you're a wolf warrior in sheep's clothing. Please join me in thanking the Minister for spending his morning with us.